Happy Tuesday, and what a Tuesday it is. It's another version of the Imperfect Action live stream. I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad for you to be a part of this. I am Rob Fenstermaker, your former corporate burnout survivor turned kingdom builder, and I am the host of the Imperfect Action live stream. Come to you on every other Tuesday at 11 o'clock and every other Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I've launched a new time for that. And I have enjoy this opportunity to bring people on and just have them share a little bit about who they are, what they do, and how they can make a difference. And it is my honor today to to introduce my good friend Daniel Andrews. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm in a really good mood. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm taking a little bit of a chance. I shared with you, I'm doing this out from the back lanai here. So I'm outside right now. And so there's always a wild card that, some neighbor could start cutting their grass, but, it's worth it. We're going to do this. I'm coming to you from sunny Southwest Florida. The sky is blue. Maybe you can see it behind me. The sun is out. We are at the height of spring break down here in Florida. So yes, there we are. But Daniel, what he loves to share is how to stop networking and start building relationships that matter. We all want that. We all want to have those relationships that make a difference in our life because our relationships are important. Just not our personal relationships, it's our business relationships and just, our social relationships. They all matter. That, to me is creating that holistic way of how we live our life and how we can make a difference with that. Um, and I think the relationships that we build are the most important thing that is part of our life.
I the One of the shifts that I made when I started to get better at this, and then one of the shifts that I studied and made myself aware of so that I could share with other people, was the notion that people prefer authentic relationships.
Mhm.
I don't think I've heard people speak with frustration and sometimes impugning the character of people that are kind of stuck in what I call a speed prospecting mode, right? What they call networking isn't even remotely related to networking. They're speed
Yeah,
prospecting, or as I say, marketing by hand, right? Giving out one
yeah,
business card at a time. And was the awareness that people don't prefer that. They just don't have the tools to do it any differently.
yeah,
And that doesn't mean I think people need to be taught how to be authentic, but I think they need to be taught how to be strategic while they're being authentic in a business setting. And
yeah,
much as we're strategically authentic, when we're dating, right, or building friendships, we do it with intentionality. I remember a long time ago, a friend of it was during my first marriage, another couple that had married about the same time my wife and I had, and started to have kids immediately. Uh, Several years into that relationship, they had us over for dinner, and at the end, they sat down and said, "We've elected to go with a program of fewer, deeper friendships instead of a lot of superficial ones. Do you want
mhm.
in? And we'll give you plenty of time to think about it." And we opted for, all in, right? And it ended
Yeah,
up being an uncle and aunt to their kids, right? We were the go-to babysitters. They would fly us out when they moved to Albuquerque. They would fly us out there to babysit because we had opted for that. But I was struck by the intentionality of, are we going to do this deeply as friends or not? And they said either answer is fine, but we just want to know. And so I started to
yeah,
carry some of that intentionality over into my professional relationships.
yeah. I believe that you talk about relationships. I believe, and I'm all about numbers. I think numbers are powerful, and I think that relationships fall into one of three categories: a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And you kind of mentioned that this couple had asked you to how do you want to proceed with this relationship? Do you want it to be deep? Do you want it to be superficial? And I think of some of the deep relationships I've had in my life. Some have been just for a reason, and some have been for a season, and some have been for a lifetime. But it's how you embrace those relationships that's important. And I know I've had opportunities to go different places in the world, and I knew that some of those relationships I built in some of those places, they were just going to be for a season. But I can think of some of those relationships that I had where I really let myself go deep and poured myself into it, and other people poured themselves into it. And I think when you live that relationship out of abundance, I think that's powerful. I think that's a powerful shift as well, of relationships out of abundance.
Well, I certainly believe that, right? But going back to my friends Pete and Shay and their approach to friendships, they understood that it was either a few deep relationships or multiples of superficial ones,
Yeah,
right? Meaning abundance is not infinite, right?
yeah,
They have
right.
opted for a program of their abundance of sharing their hearts and going deeply with a few people. And I do want to say that, in a business setting, which is really kind of the focus of what we're going to talk about today, it's not nearly as time consuming to get to an effectively authentic and deep relationship, right? Meaning we're not proposing marriage, we're not building lifelong
Yeah,
friends that are going to be aunt and uncle to our sons and daughters. Now that
right.
may be the case with a few people. That may be a happy side effect of the
No,
business relationships we build,
right.
but it's certainly. I think people miss the fact that there's a category between somebody that you pass by and nod at when you're at the weekly coffee hour, right? Or leads
Hmm.
group, if that's what you're part of, and people that turn out to be your lifelong friends and you go on vacation with, right? They miss that there are several increments between the two. And that goes to what you
Yeah,
said about a reason, a season, or lifetime, right? In business, the reason is we can be of service to each other. So, to your notion of abundance, I would manifest that professionally as a sense of mutuality,
yeah,
right? You asked for an hour and a half of my life today, half hour prep and an hour on the live stream. I don't know what's going to come from this, but I give it to you because I do. And, when you first got on, you're like, okay, now how do people reach you? What do you, I'm like, oh yeah, that part, right? Meaning I'm here in service to you. Not saying that
yeah,
I don't want publicity. I don't. That's why I volunteered. But whatever
yeah,
happens in this 90 minutes, this hour of live stream, I showed up to bring value to you and the people that are listening.
yeah,
And whether anything comes of that is less relevant in the fact that I've already agreed to invest the hour. Now, do I think that some of it will come back to me? Yes. Do I think that you're going to work hard in some way, in the future to support me? Yes. Did I quiz
yeah,
you before we got together and be like, hey, so by the way, Rob, what are you going to do for me lately? Right? No, because I know it already exists between us, right? You're a man of service.
yeah,
I'm a man of service. I trust that when the time is right, you're going to create the right intro or get me the right exposure or endorse me or write a testimonial or whatever it is you're going to do
yeah,
that's in service.
absolutely. And we've never met face to face. We've only ever met online. I think back to, when I get out of college, out of the Ohio State University, I think you have a connection to the Ohio State University. You've shared that with me in the past.
My wife's a fan.
Yes, yes. I'm a big fan too. When I got out of college back in the early '90s, and I'm looking for work. I'm a newly graduated college student. I need a job. I'd just been recently married. And I needed a job. So what do? You go to these events and these social events. You grease some palms. You collect some cards. You try and put on your best foot forward. You put on your suit and tie, and try and look the best you can. But that's changed now. We live in a different world right now. And you kind of talked about, you kind of touched on a little bit, um, some of these virtual events that exist out there. And I go to my share of virtual events. I try and 5 to 7 a week. I try to attend, and it's a different way to meet people, uh, and it's a different way to meet people. And there's sometimes it seems like to me almost there's a little bit lack of authenticity as well, because you go to
Well,
some of these events and everybody's trying to pitch. Everybody's trying to pitch.
and I don't think
Everybody
that's
wants to, their
changed.
business.
Well, the
Yeah,
venue has changed, but I mean, you basically, I don't want to sound accusatory, but you cop to it. And so when you got out of college, right, you were looking for work, and you put on your suit and tie, and you printed copies of your
yeah,
resume, right, you put on your best face, and you were moving through time and space with a singular need. I'm trying to find a job, and you were hoping
right.
that the people that you met, I mean, what you were selling, right? You're prospecting for a job, right?
Yeah,
The product was you,
yeah.
the sale
I
was
was
getting a
selling me.
salary from
Yes.
somebody, right? Right. You're selling yourself. But people move through time and space digitally and in person, much as you did back then, and people still do, and people do it digitally too, is they're kind of stuck in what I call speed prospecting mode. They've got a one-dimensional view of the people that they're talking to. And that is, are you in need of what I'm offering? In your case, are you in need of an employee? In other people's case, do you need to buy
Hmm.
what I'm selling? right? And I get it. Revenue comes from, I mean, profits come from revenue, right? Revenue comes from customers. Somebody's got to be a customer, right? Somewhere.
Yeah.
But the best customers come from prospects. I mean, customers come from prospects, but the best prospects come from referrals. And so people kind of meet the. Thank you, Frank, for those kind words. And Frank is a great connector as well, by the way. He and I
He
in
is.
similar field.
Frank's amazing. Yeah, Frank's amazing. You know what? I met Frank. I met Frank back when I lived in Ohio. He started his AM Spirit, and I went to one of his events when I was kind of in between jobs. I was trying to figure out what I want to do, and I was trying to explore a couple of things. And I was do I want to do this or I want to go back into corporate? And I attended one of Frank's AM Spirits events at the Worthington Square Mall, to be exact. If you know if you're from Columbus, that's right
I've
on.
been there. Been there.
Yes, right there, 270 and 23. And so, yeah, Frank and I first met Frank well over 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and so, right. And I get it. Somebody's got to buy your thing or you can't stay in business. But it's when, my theme of shift your focus really is understand that the likelihood that somebody can introduce you to a prospect is way higher than the likelihood that they are a prospect. Now, that's why you have to exist with a spirit of abundance and mutuality, because if you simply view the Rob Fencer makers of the world as, shut up and tell me who you know so I can tell you who I need to introduce me to, right? That's transactional, right? That's short-sighted. That's not a spirit of mutuality. But if you simply understand two things, one is that their network is bigger than yours. It consists of people you don't know. And secondarily, people like to help if they feel you're operating in a spirit of abundance or mutuality, right? I even, it's a turn off to me for somebody to even use kind of a reciprocal approach. One for you, one for me, one for you, one for me. That's actually kind of negative. But it's certainly if somebody came across as a taker, it could be, I'll back away from that real fast. But knowing that people love to give to people that love to give.
Yeah, I've been in those relationships, both personally and professionally, where people just take and never give. And eventually it just wears you out. And to me, there's no such thing as a perfect 50-50 relationship. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And people think it needs to be 50-50. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Well, and then that takes you to a spirit of reciprocity or matching, which is actually antithetical to a spirit of mutuality. Right? Meaning it's not so important to me, right? If I refer $50,000 worth of clients to you, that you refer $50,000 clients back to me. It's the fact that I know that you would if you could, right? And that you'll find other ways to support me that may or may not be revenue based, right? Or maybe more indirectly revenue based, and so, I think that that's kind of what we're working with in a number of cases. Right, is the notion that my power cord had slipped out and I was afraid I was going to lose my laptop there, so I had to adjust that real quick. But so an awareness that, and somebody asked me to cross this bridge, I don't know, about a year ago, and I'm glad they challenged me. If I recall correctly, they challenged me on a live stream to do the thinking. I'm like, oh wow, that really put me on the spot. And their comment was, if you're being strategic about who you build with, doesn't that inherently make the whole conversation transactional and not relational?
Yeah.
And I'm like, good question. Entertain the crowd for a minute while I think, right? I'm like, because this is on the live stream. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I knew I had the answer, but I needed to figure out how to word it because I hadn't been challenged to think of it that way. And I said, okay, here we go. The first question is your message worth amplifying? And he's like, yeah, I believe in what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, clearly, if your message isn't worth amplifying, then you should get into another line of work or do your work differently, right? You need to approach your work differently if your message isn't worthy of the amplification. Do other people have messages that are worth amplifying? Are you the only person on the planet with a good message to share? No. Other people have value that they bring to the world and to the community and to the business place, the market space. Okay. So if we're going to spend this much time on the planet alive and this much time on the planet awake and this much time on the planet at work and this much time on the planet dealing with other people, why wouldn't you choose to deal with other people whose message is worth amplifying and who are willing to learn how to amplify your message? So the authenticity isn't gone, the sincerity isn't gone, the relationship factors aren't gone just because you're being strategic about how and when you spend your time, right? If Pete and Shay had only ever invested in superficial friends, would they have had the ability to drop their 4 kids off at our place for the week? Would they have had the ability to call somebody and have them fly out to Albuquerque for a week to keep the kids? Would any of that been possible? No, they would have missed out. Now, they didn't do it for that reason. They did it because that's felt right to them. But the output, the consequence of choosing fewer authentic relationships were people that were there for them when they needed it.
Yeah. I like Jen's question there. Is your message worth amplifying? Because we all have a message. We all have a message. And, and the thing that's great about everybody's message is unique. It's unique to us. And, amplifying that message, I think, when you build those relationships, you'll get the feedback. Is your message the right message? And sometimes we have to fine tune that message. And, we can get stuck in our ways and just stick to it. This is the way this is the message I have. I'm going to do it. But when you have the right people surrounding you, those relationships that are meaningful, those are the people that you put your trust in. Those are the people that you rely on, that have your best interest at heart. And those are the people that you can have those conversations with, that you trust because they can be honest with you. And I think
Yeah,
is the power of messaging.
I think that's it. And I think that as you build the trust, and by the way, thanks. I'm not able to comment in real time because of the way StreamYard's set up, but I can acknowledge the comments as they come in. Thank you, Jen. As we build trust, we have to remember that gives us entree to the people that trust them, right? An introduction is not a chance to start over at zero. Right. If I just need to meet more people, I can join another online group, right? Frank Hagen's is a great one. I could join a free online group. You and I, Rob, show up in several places where that's available and accessible. I could move to the next, suburban chamber up the road. I don't even have to move my house. I could just, I'm a member of 3 chambers right now currently, right? And that's not even all of them in our town. And mine's not a huge town, right? Yeah. So if all I want to do is meet more people, there's a bunch of ways to do that. But building a network is not about meeting more people. It's about starting where you left off. Let me phrase that. Let me try to explicate that a little bit. You ever watch a relay race, Rob? Track and field? Yeah. Okay. Yep. But somebody comes around the track, right, on the relay, right, with the baton in their hand. Runner number 1 comes around the track. What is runner number 2 doing at the moment of handoff?
They're looking forward with their hand back, waiting for that baton to be passed to them.
What else are they doing?
Well, they're moving. They're
moving. They're actively running. Yeah. They do not look back. You got that right. They reach back. They'll look back if there's a bobble, but they reach back. They don't stop and take the baton and go, "Is this a regulation baton? Is this the one my teammate started with? Is it? Can we get a ruling? Can we get a what do they call it? An instant replay, right? From the video feed back in the press booth." No, they assumed they were handed the right baton and they hump it around the track. Runner number 4 was still in the locker room when the gun went off, wrestling with a busted shoelace, right? Comes out, doesn't start asking the bystanders, "What's going on? How's it going? Does everything look legit? Should I go down to the track?" They hustle over to the track and they look for the people wearing the same colored jersey as them, and they get in the lane, and they don't stop to reevaluate everything that happened before they showed up on the scene. Right now, I don't have time to blow up the math, in part because some people catch it faster than others, but I can document, I can prove, if you give me 20, 30 minutes, in a conversation, and my phone number will go up. If any of y'all want to get in this conversation, I'll take the time with you. I can prove that if you're in a chain of people that aren't very good at building trust, I don't mean they're untrustworthy. I just mean they're not actively building it with lots of people on a regular basis. If they're not very good at that, you are 12 hours away from access to 8 million people. And I don't mean an introduction to 8 million people. I mean getting on the calendar.
Yeah.
There are 8 million people on the other end of a chain that you can reach in less than 12 hours if you're not very good at building trust, and none of the other people on the chain are very good either. Again, don't have time for the math right now. I'll make sure and invest that time or invite people to that conversation. As a matter of fact, if can you comment if I put something into the studio chat? Can you post it into the real world, Rob, in real time or not?
I will try to do that. I will try. We're
Okay, if you
live. You know
can,
what? We're live. It is called the Imperfect Action
make it
live
up as
stream
we
for a
go,
reason.
right?
So it is
Okay.
called the Imperfect Action live stream
If
for
we
a reason.
don't
I
get
will give it my best.
if we don't manage to get a link to an Eventbrite onto the thread today, anybody, he's going to get my phone number. Dan, text me and I'll send you that. I'll
Yep.
send you that. But it's a conversation where I document, I prove that you're 12 hours away from getting on the calendar of whomever you want out of a pool of over 8 million. If all three of you in the chain aren't very good at it, and if all three of you are adequate at it, you've got your reach is bigger than the working population in the United States. 12 hours. I'm not talking about days or weeks or years to reach that many people. I'm talking about you're literally, you have your choice of people whose calendar you want to get on.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So here it is. You got it.
Right. So part of my theme of
here,
shift your focus is understand that there's more people not in the room than are in the room. I quit treating people as prospects and start to understand that if I engage with them authentically and seek to serve them, they will seek to serve me. And the service we can provide each other is much, much, much bigger from the introductions than whatever we could do in business with each other.
Yeah. And you said a lot there. You said some very interesting things. I remember when I was, out beating the pavement looking for a job back in the day. And I had some people that I trusted, people that had, I just called them mentors at that point in time. And one of them in particular, I remembered, he said, never discount the secretary or administrative assistant. Never discount them when you're trying to look for a job. Never.
That's an important
And he
part
was
of it.
right
And
because a lot of times, especially when you're looking for a job, and there's probably very similar too when you're looking for business, you're trying to get to that person that's going to give you the answer. And sometimes they're hard to get a hold of, and they have their people that are running interference for them. In this case, it's those secretaries, it's those administrative assistants. Their job is to protect their whoever they work for, protect their time, and be cognizant of their time. And you got to make those relationships with those men or women because they're the ones that are going to sell you for what it is to get you to that next level.
and a lot of executives are actively using their front desk people as part of the screening process. They will literally
Oh yeah,
get feedback from them.
yeah,
How do they behave? Were they kind to you? And John Ruhlin, whom I'm a big fan of, John Ruhlin, Ruhlin, for those of you that want to follow him
yeah.
on LinkedIn, is a great relationship master, and he does it through the art of gift giving. He's an Ohio boy too, Rob. You really like him. You need to follow him, John Ruhlin. And he's got a couple interesting points. His book really makes them. He's got a book called Giftology, and a business called that too. If you Google the word giftology, make sure you end up on John Ruhlin's site. Someone else is trying to pirate his brand name. The last I checked, hopefully he shut him down by now. But just go to John Ruhlin on
Giftology.
LinkedIn. Giftology. He
Giftology.
trademarked the name of that book. He trademarked the word giftology, and that's the name of his book. Anyway, he makes a couple of points that are worth elucidating right here. One is that he said every business succeeds or fails on 100 key relationships. Now, those can include customers, vendors, coworkers, referral partners. But he says in his experience, and he's been in business almost as long as I have, every business lives or dies on a maximum of 100 key relationships. And he talks quite a bit about relationship building with all levels of an organization. Frequently, he will get invited to speak. He'll be asked to, deliver content. He'll be engaged to do things for companies around gift giving, and he responds, right? He acknowledges that with a gift or some form of recognition. And whomever is the chief, the leader, right, gets, X recognition from John Ruhlin for being a player in his success. And the staff, the people that put together the conference, the people that handle the registration, they get the same gift, not a gift, not a junior gift. They get the same level or the same gift that he gives to the executives, because he knows that next year when they're like, yeah, we need a speaker for this year's conference, right, that the assistant, the front desk, who whatever that person's title is, will give the short list to the executive to choose from, and he wants to be on the short list. Now, I got to totally make the point, right? And somebody put into the chat field, I think it was you, Frank, it came in, it went, play the long game. I get it, and I know your heart on that, Frank, but it makes me, it twinge a little bit, because play, I don't like the word play, right? Frank, you and I have had some conversation about language is important. John doesn't do it because he's playing people. He does it because he knows that the person at the front desk is as important to his success as the person at the top who's signing the checks, right? So it's definitely the long game. And I'm okay with the phrase play the long game if you understand that we're not here to play people. John doesn't do that because it's manipulative. He does it because it's the right thing to do, and it's how you build a relationship. If you're on John Ruhlin's staff in his company, one of the gifts he gives you is he pays for housekeeping. He pays for a house cleaning service to come to your house twice a week, twice a month. That's what he does because he believes it shows respect for the people that are working for them, right? And let me tell you this, the spouse, right, is at home going, I don't care if you had a fight with John today. You ain't quitting that job, right? Right? Work it out with your boss, big boy, right? Because, right? He also knows that if there's ever an occasion where he has to ask them to go above and beyond, right, they already know that John is invested in taking the pressure off them, and so they're willing to work with him if it comes to the moment when they need to take the pressure off John.
Yeah, and then I go back. That's living in abundance. That's empowering those that are underneath you. As you're saying that, I'm reminded of we're both men of faith. It reminds me of the parable of the three servants.
Yeah.
And the first two, the one that got 5 parts of the business, the one that got 3 parts of the business, they had different abilities, and their boss knew that, but he gave them marching orders. Hey, do something with this, and they both did something with it, and he gave them the same blessing. He didn't change it because you got me more and you got me a little bit more. No, he gave them the same exact blessing. But the one who did nothing with it, he's like, get out of my sight. I don't ever want to see you again. You're living with scarcity. That's not a way to go. And I think there's so much to living with abundance, because I believe that when we open our hands, open our hearts, let things flow in and flow out, I absolutely believe what returns to us is tenfold. I really do.
Well, and there's when I talk about shift your focus or be strategic, right? That's part of it. And a guy named Adam Grant wrote a book. It's over there on my bookshelf. I'd go get it, but I don't want to disappear from the screen for a minute. Called Give and Take. And in the book, in the first chapter, he points out something significant. He says you can look at people's networking styles, you can observe them and pretty quickly sort them into 3 categories. People that are predominantly givers, people that are predominantly takers, and a middle category that he calls matchers. And I would apply the word reciprocity to matchers. And I'm not a fan of reciprocity. I'm a fan of mutuality. All right. But again, that's me being, pedantic about the language. Okay. Givers, takers, and matchers. Then you can look at a lifetime worth of success in business, 20, 30 plus years of record keeping. And you can sort people into 4 or 5 levels of success. And at the highest levels of success, which of those 3 people are most likely to be in the highest levels? Givers, takers, or matchers? Which do you think?
I would think matchers.
Givers.
Givers. Right.
Of the 3 categories at the highest level, you're more likely to see givers there. At the lowest levels of success, which of the 3 categories?
Oh, the takers. 100% takers.
Givers.
Oh.
Givers are the most predominant in the lowest category because they're giving wrong. They're giving wrong. I meet people all the time. I go, man, I know what you mean. I just want to go through life and give as much to everybody I can. I know it'll all come back to me. I'm like, man, we have 6,000 years of recorded history that says that's not true. Okay. You have to guard your energy. You don't have an infinite amount of energy to give. So give it to the people whose message is worth amplifying and who believe that your message is worth amplifying. Right. So it goes back to that.
Yeah.
That's an important part of it. Okay. And then I met somebody else and he's like, no, I understand. I always try to give twice as much as I receive. And I'm like, that sounds lovely, but that's actually a terrible idea because people will pull away from you just as surely if you're an overgiver as you're an overtaker. Now it'll take longer and it might be subconscious, but right. Do you ever go out with your guy friends? Rob, you ever just a bunch of you go
Oh, yeah.
out to go do
Yeah.
something? Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
somebody will treat the whole crew, right?
Yeah.
But if you were never allowed, I mean, I got into this with my dad, right? I mean, I'm going to inherit all the money he left behind. Any money he spends on a meal for me or I spend on a meal for him, right? It's really coming out of the same pot. And yet it
Yeah.
felt weird for me for my dad to always be the one to buy dinner, right? And I bought my daughter, my wife, and my daughter's boyfriend dinner recently. And he and I walked to the car to pick up we came in separate cars, different cars, because it was raining. And we came back to pick up, my wife and, his date, my daughter. And as we're walking to the cars, he said, I really didn't mean for you to buy me dinner. And I said, I worked really hard to get to this point. Allow me the grace of being generous to you. Just remember that and be
Yeah.
generous to other people, right? But even in that moment, it was awkward for him to be more of a recipient than a giver. You have to give people space. Hey, KJ, it's really good to see you, man. We should get into a conversation soon. I got some cool tools for you. But it was awkward for him to be in a situation where there was more receiving on his part than there was giving, right? And he didn't know. He lives in California, so he doesn't know when he's going to have a chance to take me out to dinner. He might not ever get a chance. And it was awkward for him knowing that. So you've got to give people room to give because it makes people feel good to give. That doesn't mean you got to demand that they give or treat it like a reciprocity. One for you, Rob, one for me, one for you, one for me. That's a bad idea in my opinion. But if you don't give room,
that's a strings attached relationship. And I have some of those people in my life where they give, but there's strings attached. And I'm just kind of like,
right. And
I'm
that's
kind of reluctant
reciprocity.
to accept. I'm reluctant to accept the gift. I really can be reluctant to accept the gift.
Correct. But you have to know at the same time that they're willing to give back, right? If some friend of mine called and said, Dan, there's an emergency, right? My wife is sick. I need you to take her to I need to take her to the emergency room. Can you come watch the toddlers? Or can I at the very least drop them at your house with a playset? Right. Well, I wouldn't be like, yeah, but weren't you going to help me hang pictures on the wall at some point? Right. I'm like, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right. Knowing that at some moment he's going to be on my side of town taking care of business and go, hey, the job got finished early. I've got a couple hours. Are you home? I'll come help you hang pictures today. Yeah. I don't have to remind him. I already know that that's in existence between the two of us. And so there's plenty of mutuality between us.
Yeah. As you were talking about the givers being at the bottom of that, and I can think about it. It goes back to what the 80-20 rule. And I've seen those people, especially, within the church community. You see people, they're involved in everything all the time and they just burn out. And I've had to learn the hard way to really evaluate what's on my plate. And there's some stuff I've had to take off and some good stuff. I mean, that stuff, but it's just like, it's not serving me in the way it used to serve me. And I've had to remove some of those relationships as well because they aren't serving me in that same way that they were at one point.
And that's okay.
I think that yeah, that's okay.
Right. We're not infinite.
It's one of three ways: reason, season, or a lifetime. And you gotta understand what is this relationship? How does it qualify?
Yeah. So, when we talk about shift your focus, right? Start to think about what good you can do the person and what good they can do for you. Because people love to help. Whether or not they're a prospect is a totally separate question altogether. Right. So that's part of it, right? Part of it is, being strategic about who you build with, right? Meaning the casual short conversations that you have in digital networking events or live networking events should be a sifting process, a selecting process.
Yeah.
Right. I used to use the word sorting, but because I believe language is important, sorting sounds like something you do to marbles, right? Or broken tile, right? That sounds like something you do to an object, but selecting and sifting, those are language of human, right? Even the Bible uses the language of sifting, right? But asking better questions comes down to trying to build a professional relationship. The tools, the only tool most of us were ever handed, if we got a tool at all, on how to build relationships is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Not a bad book. It's actually very fascinating.
Oh.
Okay. I totally endorse it. And then people go out, right? And they remember that rule about the way to be considered interesting is to be interested in other people, right? And they'll ask about the family and the pet and the dogs and the vacation and how did OSU do this year? And, Don't say the name of that state up north, right? And, did you lose money on the Super Bowl? And those are all legitimate questions, right? A number of people asked me when my mom was ill, how's your mom doing? And it meant something to me that they asked.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the basis for a professional relationship. That's an adjunct to a professional relationship. And what I mean by that is, think of it this way. Are there people in your world that have been to your house for social reasons that you wouldn't actually hire to do whatever it is they do?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, that's a yes or no question. One time I asked a guy, and there was this long pause, and he finally goes, "Are we starting a list?" I'm like, no. This is not cancel culture. I don't even live in your town. I don't need to know who the crappy vendors are in your town, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of that is, are there people that you have hired or would hire to do what they do for a living, but you just don't picture them at your house?
Absolutely.
So questions centered around whether or not you're friendly and whether or not we should do poker night together or go down to the bowling alley or vacation together or have you be aunt and uncle to my son and daughter are completely separate from a conversation about whether or not you belong in my professional circle. And it is just as important, Rob, if you and I are exploring, and I'll use you as an example because you're here in the dialogue, if you and I are exploring the potential for referring business and maybe doing business in one direction or both, it's as important that I discover your referability as it is that I uncover my referability. I need to have trust in you just like I need you to have trust in me, because I'm shooting for mutuality, right? A setting where we're never too far off track. So if all I do is put my focus on explaining to you why I'm great and why I'm referable and why you should trust me, and you do, and you refer some business to me, or you refer a connection that's worthwhile to me, or you support me in some way, but then you realize I've never done the same back, that relationship's not going to last. And it won't work. I mean, I won't refer business to you if I haven't taken the time to discover if you're referable. So we need to ask better questions of the people that we're talking with so that we can determine, would I refer business to you, or more importantly, under what situations would I refer business to you? Mm-hmm. Right. I love the comment. It goes up a lot on Facebook groups. Our community's got a lot of community-wide, citywide Facebook groups, right? Can somebody refer to me a good but affordable fill in the blank? Printer, plumber, HVAC, right? Craftsman, handyman, general contractor. And I always comment, you will not get both. And the only people that will respond to this message are the affordable / cheap ones. Yeah. Because the good ones have already opted out, right? But do I know some inexpensive handyman? Yes. Will I refer them? If price is the main consideration for you, Rob, I want to introduce you to somebody different than if looks are the main consideration or precision is the main consideration. Right? I've got a different set of referrals based on what your needs are.
Yeah. Be careful what you pay for, because you're going to get exactly what you pay for.
Right. But my point is, as I'm discovering whether or not you're referable, it's not even so much are you referable, it's discovering under what circumstances I refer you. If you're the budget guy or gal for your category, that's great. Some people care about budget. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But if you're the premium for your category, that's great. So both of you might be referable in my mind, but I'm going to sort who I refer you to or who I refer to you. Right. And people don't bother to ask those questions. Well, Rob, mows lawn for a living and he's a good guy. That does not mean he's good at mowing lawns. It just means he's a good guy that mows lawns for a living. Right. That's all that means. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, it's just, how many, like right now, my wife and I we're renting a house down here in Florida and we're looking to buy a home. And it seems like you can't throw a rock without hitting a realtor. And the same was true when we were up in Ohio. And, finding a quality person, we had to find a quality person. We wanted to sell our house in Ohio. But everybody wants, to be your realtor. Well, you got to have those conversations. We had those conversations. We had some conversations with some people that were kind of assuming we were going to hire them. Sorry. Yeah. I can't do it. I mean, you can't do it. You can't do it out of, friendship or familiar relationship, whatever. No. As a matter of fact, if somebody is an established realtor, I actively coach them not to solicit their friends and family for business. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, you don't want that. You
Yes,
don't want
it
that.
can destroy it can destroy relationships. And
It
my
really
wife and I, we knew that, and we knew we couldn't go down that road. So we knew we had to have that right relationship, and we asked those questions. And that's the ironic thing is that something like a home, trying to sell a home, that's the biggest asset that the majority of people are going to have is their home, the value of their home. That's the greatest asset that they're probably going to have. And they'll just hey, whatever. So and so said he's a good guy. I'll give him the listing. Why? Why are you not taking the time to ask those questions?
Yes, exactly. And even if you're not going to use them, you're still asking those questions again to put somebody into the correct referral category for you, right? Had a guy call
Right.
me one day, and this is when I lived in St. Louis. He goes, "Hey, he's a guy I knew from business, and he needed the name. He was being sued for something fairly frivolous, but it was a business lawsuit. And he needed representation. So he calls me. I don't know, weeks later. I can't remember if it was a few or a bunch, but he calls me weeks later. He goes, "Hey, Dan, that lawyer you referred me to, he's a bit of a jerk. I won't repeat the language." He goes, "Hey, he wasn't all that nice." And I said, "Cool." I said, "Is this an update or a complaint?" He goes, "What's the difference?" And I said, "Well, I know his boss. I can call the managing partner and tell him that he needs to, work on his soft skills." I said, "But did he win?" He goes,
Yeah.
"Yeah, he won." And then he paused and goes, "Yeah, so I
Yeah.
guess this is an update, not a complaint." I'm like, "Thank you." Because you didn't ask me for
Yeah.
somebody to go play poker with. You asked me for somebody that would help you
Yeah.
win the case.
That's it
Right.
exactly. If I'm going to hire somebody, I want them to do the job.
Yeah.
Do it ethically. If you're a jerk, okay, but are you going to get the
Right.
job done for me? Are you going to do
Exactly.
what I'm asking
I
you
need
to
the
do?
job done.
And
Yeah.
if that's the case, as long as we got those parameters, I'm not here to be your buddy. I'm hiring you. I'm giving you my hard-earned cash. I want you. This is what I want you to do for me. Do it ethically. Do it legally. Get it done.
I've never met the guy that mows my lawn. He was referred by somebody in the neighborhood. They gave me his number. I texted him, told him my address. He drove by, gave me a quote. I pay him via Cash App. Even if I'm home, he doesn't ring the bell. He just texts, "I'm done," and I Cash App him, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not important to me that Chad and I are good friends. It's important to me that my lawn gets done right at a price that's fair,
Did he get your
right?
grass cut? That's what's important.
Well, and
You've
if Frank is still listening,
established what the parameters are. Cut my
right,
grass, and
right, exactly.
yeah,
If Frank's still listening, he'll get a kick out of this. Anybody will, but Frank probably more than others because of his awareness. I was talking with somebody, I don't know, gosh, it's probably a year ago now, and he said, no, I said to her, I said, what does networking look like? When you say you're networking, what does that mean? What are you actually doing? She goes, "Well, I go to these, in-person events, right? Usually a happy hour, coffee hour. Every city's got them, quite a bunch of them usually."
yeah,
Um, and she's in the travel industry, right? She's a travel agent. Okay. And she goes, "And I just try to make people, I get to be their friend, right? Over time, make multiple visits, gradually make them my friend, right? And then eventually we'll work business into the equation." And I'm like, wow, I cannot possibly imagine a less productive approach. Not only is she not choosing to build a professional relationship with somebody, making a friend first is counterproductive. It's literally counterproductive. Have you ever heard somebody say, not everybody does, but have you ever heard somebody say, "Rob, oh, I have a policy against doing business with friends and family"? Yeah, people say that. I'm not saying everybody
yeah.
says it. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't say it. I'm saying that some people say that. Have you ever heard somebody say, "I do business with Rob, but I don't actually want to actually find out about his personal life or be his friend"?
I suppose. Yeah,
You can
yeah.
you
I
can
mean,
mix
but I mean,
friendship on top of business, right? Business needs to be the
yeah,
sprinkles on top of the friendship cupcake. Excuse me. Friendship needs to be the sprinkles on top of the business cupcake, not business the
yeah,
sprinkles on top of the friendship cupcake. As a matter of fact, with some
right.
people, if you get to be their friend first and then try to introduce business, they will be offended that you introduce business first. Excuse me, that you
Yeah,
introduce friendship first. They'll feel taken advantage of. I got
yeah.
my stuff backwards. Hopefully, if you guys got confused, just replay the last 60 seconds. I haven't had enough coffee,
Hey, that's
clearly.
why it's called. That's why it's called the Imperfect Action live stream.
There we go.
You got it. You got to figure it out. Sometimes you just got to be imperfect,
Now, I'm not
and
saying
that's
you
what
need
it's
to be
about.
jerks to other people, right? You can operate in a friendly
No,
fashion, but if you're in pursuit of
correct.
friendship, right? And think about how
Yeah,
many people you know that could refer business to you,
right.
and then think about how many
Absolutely.
do. Not that many. comparatively, which means you haven't built professional relationships with them. Oh, they may know what you do for a living, but that's not inherently a professional relationship. They're just somebody who knows what you do for a living. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. All right. So, I mean, I know you work with. I mean, do you have an? Let me ask it this way: do you have an ideal client you love to work with? Who's your ideal client?
Yeah, I pause not because it's hard to answer. I just want to figure out the most to articulate it. I seem to attract two sorts of people, and let me first just say what it is I attract them to. I have a 90-day closed-ended, meaning it's a finite program of how to move from casual business card exchange to professional referral relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is sorting. Meaning not every business card you collect will end up being a key referral partner for you, or even really part of your network. But anyway, I show people how to do that well. Yes, exactly. Exactly, Frank. Yes, you nailed it. Okay. Anyway, so I have a closed-ended program called Ninja Network Building Skills, right? So if you want to inquire about Ninja, that's shorthand for the 90-day relationship building program. So the people that are attracted to that are two ends of a spectrum, and one end is the people where there's one on every corner: real estate agents, financial services, insurance, mortgage, bank branch managers. And I say that, right? There's nothing wrong with those roles, right? There's nothing wrong with the fact that there's one on every corner. I say that because the best way to distinguish yourself, if you're in a role where everybody knows a dozen, right? Like you talked about interviewing real estate agents, right? If everybody knows a dozen of you or more, how do you stand out? You stand out by being referred by somebody who already trusts you. Meaning, at the level where there's one on every corner: real estate, financial services, mortgage, insurance, branch managers at local banks, the trust that other people have in you comes from the trust that they have in the person that referred you. Let me paint a really explicit picture. My town has 2,500 real estate agents, roughly, and 2,500 mortgage lenders, roughly. If I wanted to do the mortgage business in this town, one way to success would be to spend tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing on a campaign that lasted months or maybe years. Mm-hmm. And then I would be subject to being toppled by the next man or woman that came along with a bigger marketing budget or longer timeline. Or I can find 10 real estate agents that will refer a majority of their business to me and never spend a dime on a billboard or SEO, right? As a matter of fact, I have a mortgage lender that I'm coaching on this, because if he has 10 the right 10 real estate agents referring a majority of their business to him, he can support a whole team, a whole literal team of mortgage lenders with 10 agents. Yeah. That is faster to find and build a relationship with the 10 right agents. It's less expensive, and it's not subject to someone else's marketing. Those relationships are mine to lose or keep based on my own credentials, right? Yeah. And so people that can succeed by either massive amounts of energy spent on marketing or a little bit of energy spent on relationship building tend to be very good people for me. And they're district managers. Anybody that oversees a handful of real estate agents, or an office or a district or a state or a region of insurance, mortgage, anything like that, I've got some pretty good corporate programs I can bring to their attention. So that's good. Okay. The other end of that, I like to work with people that are in niche B2B offers. If what you have to offer is a $2,000 website build, you don't need me. You need a local networking group. Frank Agan's groups could be really good for you in something like that. There's several other brand names out there. Mm-hmm. But I'm a fan of Frank, so I'll mention Frank's. and a friend and a fan of his organizations. You could join Network in Action, which is what I do and maintain, right? I'm a big fan of Network in Action. Clearly, I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression that I don't believe in the brand that I represent, right? We convene monthly. I'm a big fan of that, right? But if you build, a chamber of commerce could be all you need, or a big congregation, right? If you belong to a church or a synagogue or a mosque, right? Yeah. That could be all you need. But if you build $100,000 websites, you're going to need a network. Yes. Yeah, Frank and I deliver different things into the space, right? Network in Action and Frank's, brand names with Spirit, really do. I mean, we serve a lot of the same people, but it's based on what feels right for each of those people. right? Yeah, Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Frank's relationship with myself and other network in action, including our franchisor, is a good example of the fact that collaboration happens at the top. Competition is what
Hmm.
happens to people at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, yep. So anyway,
So people can go to your website and schedule a call with you.
and yep, but you have to put a little effort into it. You got to click around to find the link to get on my calendar, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with that, right? Because it means you're serious. But you can also simply text me. I believe that there's a personal
Okay.
touch and a phone number. If you do text me, please text me your name and why you're texting me, because I want to make sure you're not
Just
one of
not
the
texting to
scammers.
say hi or how's the weather. Just give a
That's right.
specific
No,
reason as to
or
why you're
worse
calling.
yet, don't go, Janet. I'm going to pick you up for the concert tonight. Are we still on schedule? Be kind to those scammers, by the way. A lot of those are being held under slave conditions in
Oh, I
China.
know. I agree. I agree. I
I'm just
agree.
putting that
And
out there. And if you don't
I
believe me,
agree.
look up John Oliver on scams, and he'll explain it.
Yeah, there's a a YouTube site I love watching where the guy he gets back at scammers, and he creates it. Well, first off, he go against the porch pirates where people would steal your packages off your porch. You create these glitter bombs. Well, he decided because he kept getting these scam calls to go after some of these scamming organizations, and they were kind of legit organizations in other countries, and he kind of did some of the same stuff to them. And it was interesting to watch. But I
Well,
agree.
make sure you're picking on the right people,
Um,
folks, because
yeah,
again, a lot of
exactly.
those.
And he was, and
Right.
he was picking on the right people.
Let's not derail this. Go look up
So
John Oliver on pig butchering, and you can get all
yeah.
your content from there. We don't need to derail our conversation here. John
No,
Oliver
yeah, I agree. I
covers it
agree.
quite nicely.
I agree. I agree. I didn't mean to take the conversation there, but this has been a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy. I know I enjoyed it.
I have
Um,
fun.
I'm always looking for guests as well because you too can appear as a guest on the Imperfect Action live stream. Daniel took some imperfect action. He scheduled some time with me to do just that. If you are interested in joining, just go to my Calendly link, and you too can schedule a date and time to appear on the Imperfect Act stream. Like I said before we started, I do it every other Tuesdays at 11 o'clock, and I'm also starting to do it every other Wednesday at 2 p.m. if
Nice.
Tuesday mornings don't work out for you. So I'm going to kind of branch this out and expand it a little bit. I just want to do a little shameless plug for myself. I also host another community, the Iron Sharpens Iron community, which if I'm not doing the Imperfect Action live stream, I'm doing my Iron Sharpens Iron community. I also host the Friday virtual whiskey hour, which is coming up this Friday. And people have asked, well, I don't drink whiskey. Well, there's no requirement to drink whiskey. I call it the whiskey hour because you know what? You put whiskey in there, people are hooked by that. And we've had some great conversations at this event. The last event we held 2 Fridays ago, uh, we talked about, is there still value in a college education? And I kind of preface this on Peter Thiel recently put out that he was offering college students $100,000 to drop out for 2 years to go ahead and pursue their entrepreneurial dreams. And I think that's where true leadership is built, is within the entrepreneurial world. And I think there's something powerful about that. And to ask Frank's question, who am I looking for? You know what? People all have dreams and visions of things they want to do, and sometimes they just get stuck in a rut. They don't know what to do with it. I help you get out of the rut. I help you to take that next step. I help you to bring a solid foundation to what you want to accomplish. I bring clarity to what that dream is, and I get you in action because I get tired of listening to people say, well, if I only had the perfect time to do something, the kids are out of the house and blah, 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 blah. They say that for years and years and years and years. And finally, one day they wake up. What happened to my dream? Well, I'll tell you, they let life happen to their dream. And that's what happened. I get you in action, and we figure out, who's your tribe? How are you going to lead them? How are you going to be that effective person, that leader you want to be? So that's who I love to talk to. I love to hear people's dreams because I want to see them make their dreams a reality. But Daniel, I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity to have this conversation. Like I said, we've gotten to know each other here over the last year and a half. At some point, we'll have that face-to-face meeting. I don't know when. You're just a couple states away from me. You're in South Carolina.
Exactly.
I'm in Florida. Who knows? Who knows? We
I
may
think
meet
I'm
up
going to
some
have to
point.
host
Um,
the world's longest happy hour for like a whole weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, and just bring everybody that I've met digitally together, right? Because it's just way too
yeah,
much
yeah,
fun. People are too cool.
absolutely, Absolutely. Or Savannah. You know, Savannah's a place I really enjoy. If you've never been to Savannah, because if you're in South Carolina, you're probably pretty
Yeah,
close to Savannah.
but every airline
I
has a
enjoy
hub in
Savannah.
Atlanta. Every
What's
airline has
that?
a hub in Atlanta. I said every airline has a hub in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. So that's true.
We'll figure it out.
But hey, I appreciate this conversation, Daniel. I hope you enjoy. I hope everybody that stopped by. I appreciate everybody's comments. I hope you got something out of this. Reach out to Daniel. I trust you. You will not regret that conversation. You know, get in contact with them. Again, stop by my virtual Friday whiskey hour. Stop by Iron Sharpens Iron. Or again, if you want to appear on the Imperfect Action live stream, just reach out to me and we'll get something figured out. We'll get you scheduled. Daniel, do you have any parting words before we go ahead and sign off?
Sure. Well, I do want to say I hear good things about your whiskey hour. That's family time for me, so I haven't attended, but the people I know that have said some really nice things about it. Secondly, I would encourage you to get into a one-on-one conversation with Frank Hagan and very clearly articulate who you need because he will refer people to you. And lastly, I would say, just like Rob's looking for guests, I'm looking for more hosts. If there's ever a chance, if anybody in your world supports a business-related podcast or authentic conversation podcast, I'd love to be invited. I have more than one topic.
Yes, you do. All right, Daniel. Well, this is a lot of fun. I said I appreciate the opportunity, and it was a lot of fun. So let's make this a great day. Let's take some imperfect action and see what happens. All right.
Awesome, man. I'm excited.
All right. Peace out.
Peace.